Well, good evening and welcome to the Arbor Hills Nature Preserve in Plano, Texas. Tonight's exercise is a first field test of the Fenix HP35R Headlamp. I want to thank Fenix Lighting for sending me this product and making the review possible. Now, the headlamp is available in two configurations, standard, which you see here, and SAR. The SAR configuration is ideally suited for direct attachment to work and bump helmets. Now, if you look at the setup I have here for the HP30R V2, I tend to like to set up my own helmets. I start with a lightweight but sturdy bike helmet. You can see that I add other mounts and attachments to it. So the standard model just works better for that kind of midnight engineering mindset. I also want to objectively report on what does it feel like to wear this directly on your head for an extended period of time. My first two preliminary evaluations were 20 and 30 minutes. I wore it on my head with a buff. Now the buff was doubled up around my forehead. Tonight I'm wearing a do-rag and I'm going to try to get at least an hour and a half of wear time. We'll see how that goes. So in terms of the product, let's start from the back and work our way to the front. Well, proprietary battery pack. 10,000 milliamp hour. I have inquired but have not received a definitive response as to whether or not Fenix will sell replacement battery packs. I have verified that you can use the headlamp while charging. So until this gets worked out, you can probably expect that the immediate means for extending the runtime of the headlamp is with an external power bank. Now, on the subject of power bank, this attaches and detaches very easily. Comes apart here. You can use this as a standalone power bank in and of itself. This button right here, quick press, gives you battery level. Long press activates the rear red light. Once in that output mode, successive short presses toggle back and forth between solid and flashing. Another long press to turn the red light off. USB-C charge, discharge. On the front, you have three output modes, a neutral to somewhat warm spot, a high CRI flood, and then combined spot and flood. Output is completely controlled right here. Move this dial forward to rotate from off to spot to flood to combined, back all the way to off. Once you're in a particular output mode, successive presses of this button allow you to cycle through the output levels of low, medium, high, turbo. I do appreciate the size of this dial and these protrusions that make it very easy for your finger to catch. So my fingers are sweaty. They're cold. I'm working with gloves. It's very easy to operate. I also like the generous size of this button. Now, I know you're here to see beam shots. We'll get there very quickly. I have one administrative comment to discuss regarding the test tonight, and that is I will not be doing my normal turbo burn down. I tend to limit those tests to 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll see from the burn down chart here, there's a very small span of a few minutes where the output is expected to be relatively flat, then a very sharp linear ramp down. I don't have a lot of detail about this section of the curve. In one of my preliminary tests, I did a turbo burn down. 4 minutes, the output level appeared relatively unchanged. Getting this detail impresses me as something that should be done as its own standalone test, probably a time-lapse video. If you are interested in that, leave a comment. I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, I know what the score is. You want the beam shots. We have a lot to cover in the field. So it's time for me to quit babbling and get out there and get to it. The range in terms of lumen and candela from low to turbo is very broad, so I'm going to split the test areas up for the basic output levels. This is low spot. There is medium. You can see right in there, there's a gap between the trees. Now during the winter, that gap is very easy to see, and it is just over 50 yards inside of that. Much more difficult to see here when everything is overgrown. And then high spot. Now it may not quite show up on the phone, but I can definitely see back into that gap. Same area, combined spot and flood in low, medium, and high. Really good detail closer to me. It's much harder though to see back into that gap. At the bridge in low flood, this is more of an admin output level. Medium, high, good 35 yards or so line of sight there. And everyone's favorite turbo. Try to keep my head still. Rotate the phone so you can see the peripheral or side to side. Even with the flood, it's got a very hard edge. First practical exercise of the evening, close proximity search. The scenario is your kids were playing out here earlier at the playground, dropped something, now you have to search for it. Medium flood. So let's just look around. And of course, as we get up here to the lit picnic area, medium fizzles out pretty quick. So now let's go up into high. And now I can see back into those dark areas. And then come around through here. And we'll call it quits right here. I want to show you something about field of view. I'm filming this in wide angle, and we're on high flood, but notice the shape of the beam and the very hard edge. Now what I'm going to do is switch to medium spot. Back again. So you're noticing that when we go from spot to flood, the field of view is approximately the same, meaning that if I'm looking well downrange, there's a considerable blind area by my feet and off to each side. So if you're doing a lot of close proximity work, let's say inside 15-20 yards, and you're focusing most of your attention downrange, it is quite possible that you might walk by something that over here, if there was a wider field of view, you would pick it up in your peripheral. So I just wanted to show you that, because if you are into search, depending on how much time you spend doing close searches, it may be an issue, it may not. And realize that I'm filming this in wide angle, so let me switch back to the 24mm lens. There we go. You still have relatively generous side to side, but you do have these areas off to the side, and now I'm looking well down range. Yeah, that's looking down towards my feet. So again, depending on type of searches you do, it's just something to keep in mind. But philosophically, this is very much a downrange illumination style headlamp. All right, let's look at low, medium, high spot and when we might transition from one to another in a wide open, somewhat bright area. I've got about 38 yards or so line of sight to the opposite edge of that creek, and I can just barely make it out here in low. So let me move around to the right. You've probably seen this before. There's the sign, much harder to see this time of year. And I'm working at about 25 to 30 right in here. I can make out some detail. Now the distances decrease, then increase. And as I get out here to 40, 50-ish, it's really falling off. So let's go up into medium and keep going around. Just past the gap between those trees is a little over 100. I can get some detail there. Then I'm going to move off to the right. Okay, right about here we're 140 or so. Really need to go up into high, and then I can get some modest detail from that tree line in the distance. This is turbo flood in an open area. I'm just going to pan around. There is an advantage to high CRI in this type of a sweep back and forth, and that is number one, I don't get dramatic reflections up close. And so if there is something right here 15 or 20 feet in front of me, I don't have such a bad reflection that I miss it. I get very accurate color rendering, so if I'm looking for something that's I have a very precise description or picture, that just makes my life a little bit easier. And then I also do not get as bad a reflection in the case of particulates in the air. But I do have to do a lot of side to side. I can't use my peripheral vision very much just because of, again, that's the field of view. There's a good look at turbo flood over a wide area. And it is impressive for something that's this low color temperature. I don't remember, but I think that tree line is well over 50 yards, and I could see out to the edge there, even though it's a very bright night tonight with all the light pollution from the surrounding city. This will be high and turbo spot, starting out in high. I'm going to move back and forth there. You can see that gap between the trees. Just beyond the gap is about 90, 95 yards. Now I'm looking out to the tree in the distance, which is over 175. I can barely tell that the top of the tree is out there. Can't get any detail. So bump that up to turbo. Oh yeah, no problem. I can see all sorts of detail all the way down to the bottom of the tree. I can actually see the trees behind it, even with particulates in the air. Now we'll do the same test, but with the combined mode. This is high combined flood and spot, and turbo. Side to side really enhances the side to side view, although honestly I'm not getting as much detail from the tree in the distance. So that's the trade-off between the spot and the combined modes. Observation tower approximately 35 yards, and there is flashing red. Approximately same spot, solid red. So one final item tonight before I do my summary. In medium flood, as I just look around here, I do want to report on the overall wear and comfort of the headlamp, and I was extremely surprised. I thought something this big and bulky would cause me some issues after I got to that 30-minute to an hour mark. I've done almost an hour 45 tonight, and it just feels great. Now, take that with a couple grains of salt. You can see from the opening that I wear a bump helmet with a heavy headlamp and probably an action camera and maybe even another light on top of it all the time. So yeah, the reduction in weight here probably accounts for something, but I'm just wearing a relatively thin do-rag tonight. I have extremely sensitive skin on my forehead due to a very bad car wreck many, many years ago. So when I say that something feels good to wear for an extended period of time, your results will probably work out even better once you get used to the weight. If you're coming from an ultralight Petzl or Black Diamond, yeah, it'll take some getting used to. If you're used to wearing larger, bulkier headlamps, I think you'll find that the standard edition works just great. So I just wanted to report on that. That was one of the things I wanted to get done in this early test phase. All right, let's wrap this up for tonight. You probably know where I'm headed. Low spot. Let's bump that up into medium. The downrange situational awareness from just low and medium is absolutely phenomenal. And that's really what this light is all about, is downrange punch. If you want it, you like really high CRI in a flood, then yeah, this is probably the droid that you're looking for. Okay, so you've probably seen this area before, but mostly in the winter, about 55 yards line of sight. Let's go up to high, pan around here. So let's get right to it. Is this going to be my number one search and rescue headlamp? Is it going to totally obsolete the HP30R V2? I'd have to say right now, it's still a little bit inconclusive. I'm not going to make any complete decision until I get this out to the LBJ Grasslands and do some extended tests. I suppose if there was anything that I would change, anything that would just flip that to almost a slam dunk, and then let me go up to turbo. Again, absolutely amazing. Back around to low and medium in and of themselves are just outstanding for path following. I would probably up the color temperature on the flood and increase the field of view so that when I'm doing combined flood and spot, I still get the same downrange from the spot, but I get a dramatically expanded field of view. When I'm searching with the flood, I really don't have that much need for 30, 40 yards downrange. What I really want to do in those cases is take advantage of my peripheral vision as much as possible. Okay, there's back to medium. I really want to get this out to the LBJ Grasslands as quickly as I can. In terms of, your potential use cases, I definitely hope you saw enough tonight. If not, you know the score. Leave a comment. I'll see what I can do about it. I plan to do at least 2, probably 3 more evaluations of this headlamp. Like I say, the downrange is just incredible. It continues to blow me away. And on that happy note, I guess I'll shut it down for tonight. And as always, until the next review, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for watching the video.